escaping the one-dimensional trap, upgrading your life's dimensions through SOPs.
Hey everyone, today, let's jump straight to the point. We often hear buzzwords online like dimensional shift or dimensional strike. They sound incredibly mysterious and highbrow. But what do they actually mean? To get a crystal clear answer, we've put together a special illustrated breakdown today. We're going to do a deep dive into an amazing talk from the Buddha Action Association of Australia. This conversation hits like a direct right hook, in a remarkably down-to-earth way. It lays bare the core logic of why we constantly run into walls in life and, more importantly, how to break free. Ready to reshape your perspective? Let's dive right in. First, let's tackle a really interesting question. Honestly, when you think of the word dimension like 3D or 4D space, don't you instinctively look down at your own body? We tend to think, oh, it's this physical body that's bound by height, width, and depth, trapping me in this physical world. But in this talk, the master threw out a sharp, soul-searching question: do you really think dimensional elevation just means upgrading your physical body? This is actually the single biggest cognitive trap ordinary people fall into. Pay close attention to this line on the slide, it hits hard. But it's crystal clear. The mind is the foundation, not your physical body. The body is merely your karmic result, it is not the real you. This insight is an absolute game changer. The master pointed out that we constantly mistake our body for our true self. In reality, your body is more like a fixed fruit grown from your past actions. In Buddhism, this is called Zenbao direct karmic fruition. To put it simply, your body is like a computer monitor you're currently using. But your actual core operating system, the one that determines which dimension you live in, is your mind. To make this clearer, let's look at a quick comparison. Karmic result, your body, this is a fixed hardware fact. Whether you're tall, short, lean, or heavy, it's already set. Capacity, virtue, merit, your life's dimensional elevation depends by 100% on this side. How much can your mind hold? How clear-headed are you when trouble hits? These are the dimensions you can adjust anytime. The hardware is fixed, but your software capacity is infinitely upgradable. The material also shared a hilarious yet fascinating historical anecdote. There was an arhat named Gavpati whose internal mental operating system had already achieved a massive dimensional leap, endowing him with incredible spiritual powers. But guess what? His physical body still retained the bovine habit of chewing cud, regurgitating food. Sounds bizarre, right? But it proves a perfect point. The factory flaws of your physical body cannot stop your mind from soaring into higher dimensions. The master also used the everyday example, playing chess. Think about it. Two people sit down at a board. Both have two hands. Two eyes breathe the same air, and exist in the exact same 3D physical space. Right, yet, looking at the same board, a grandmaster glances over and has already calculated 10 moves ahead. A novice, on the other hand, scratches their head. Why, that's a dimensional strike on the mental level. Crystal clear vision to see the whole board. Then came a brilliant explanation of why we ruin our lives. Pay attention to how trouble's afflictions are redefined here. Usually, when we talk about trouble, we just mean feeling down. But here, the master defines trouble as a terrifying geometric trap, the one-dimensional trap. When you are completely controlled by greed, anger, or anxiety, you regress into a single point. You can't remember past lessons, and you don't care about future consequences. Driven purely by emotional impulses, you just roll around in life. After rolling for a lifetime, you remain a pitiful, zero extension point. Putting the CED state into real life gives us instant déjà vu. Imagine you're driving your life purely on impulse. It's like slamming the brake, mistaking it for the accelerator, and flooring it. When you get angry or lose your temper, you refuse to lift your foot off that pedal. The result, a total crash and burn. What's even wilder is that even after crashing, messing up a great relationship, or driving away a benefactor, we don't reflect on switching pedals. Instead, we find 10,000 excuses to prove we slammed the right pedal. only to jump into another car and crash all over again. That's the destructive power of emotional turmoil. The ultimate irony. We actually think we won. When we're trapped in emotional impulses like winning a petty argument or taking a cheap advantage and feeling smug about it. The master painted a hilarious picture to higher dimensional beings. We look like someone sitting in a bar, blissfully holding a smelly sock to their nose, deeply intoxicated by the scent, thinking they've hit the jackpot. It's a total disconnect in perception across dimensions. What you think is enjoyment is, in the eyes of higher wisdom, nothing more than wallowing in the mud without even realizing it. Now comes the question we care about most, since none of us want to be a one-dimensional point rolling around on impulse. And none of us want to keep crashing our lives. What should we actually do? How do we carve a straight line of breakthrough out of this invisible trap? Where is the very first step to upgrading our dimension? The answer might surprise you. The master actually borrowed a term we hear every day in the corporate world: SOP, standard operating procedure. That's right, the only way to escape the control of one-dimensional emotions is to build ironclad rules and order for your life. No matter how small the task, whether it's sweeping the floor, wiping the table, or cooking a meal, you must clearly understand its underlying rules. Step E. Step R, then execute them with precision, free from emotional interference. The line of rules you establish is your boarding pass to a multi-dimensional space. How do we do this step by step? Cut off wild thoughts and impulses if your mind is clouded by greed, anger, and ignorance. You won't achieve anything. Focus on the present and execute the SOP when you calm down. Focus on the present moment and build and execute an SOP from start to finish. You successfully stretch that emotional point into a rational line. Congratulations! You've leveled up to RD. Expand into a multi-dimensional space as you extend these lines in all directions: up, down, left, right, across your life. You build a multi-dimensional space of awareness. Of course, don't try to save the universe right out of the gate. The master gave very practical advice: start small. For example, try caring for a small potted plant and build an SOP for it. Do you know how deep to dig the soil? How often to water it? How much water and fertilizer to give each time? Think about it if you can't even stick to an SOP for raising a single flower. Getting frustrated and giving up after 2 tries. What makes you think you can handle the complex chess game of your life? Mastering the simplest tasks until they become habit, that is the foundation for upgrading your dimension. Speaking of which, the master brought up an eye-opening example: ants. To put it bluntly, many of us might not even measure up to a tiny ant. Look at ants, they have strict organizational discipline. Step up bravely when trouble strikes. And don't complain or get greedy. In contrast, even though we wear the mantle of advanced human beings, we lose our tempers and break rules the moment we face a minor setback. Without SOPs, acting purely on impulse. What gives us the right to think we exist in a higher dimension than an ant? That is a sobering question that leaves you breaking out in a cold sweat. Now let's look at this time allocation chart. It's a wake-up call that brutally reveals why we constantly stay stuck in place. We constantly shout about wanting to grow, upgrade, and gain wisdom. But reality, we might listen to 3 minutes of truth occasionally, only to throw it behind our backs right after. On the flip side, for a full 24 hours a day, even while dreaming, we repeatedly chew on and nurture our anxiety, complaints, and anger. When you invest thousands of times more time fertilizing your troubles, how could they not grow strong? How could your wisdom possibly sprout? But friends, the moment you decide to completely reverse the situation today, to respect rules and faithfully follow SOPs, the result will be magnificent. Just like the ultimate picture painted by the master: horizontal and vertical lines, layered one above the other, spreading into every corner of the vast cosmos. That is what it means to be a Buddha. This is the ultimate romance of dimensional elevation, when every single thought and action is no longer a blind point driven by impulse, but a line connected by clear awareness, filling every dimension of your life. That is the ultimate perfect wisdom. So, the choice now goes back to you. The next time something makes your blood boil, will you let impulse take the wheel, crash your car recklessly, and remain a one-dimensional point stuck in a loop? Or will you take a deep breath, part the fog, and starting with something as simple as sweeping the floor, set your rules and draw the very first line toward a higher dimension? The answer can only be written by you. I hope today's deep dive into this talk from the Buddha Action Association of Australia helps spark your very first dimensional shift in life. See you next time.